Well, hello my lovelies. Recently I watched Hocus Pocus 2, and we're going to talk about it. Without any further ado, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's jump into it. Roll the intro. Welcome back. Now, the witches are back. The Sanderson sisters have returned in yet another movie, which is Hocus Pocus 2. And I've seen some mixed things about it, so I decided to watch it because I made a decision a long time ago that I didn't think that if they ever made a sequel I would watch it, because I didn't think that anything that they could make today would capture the feeling of the original Hocus Pocus. But I seen all the talking about this movie, so I decided to check it out. Now we're gonna jump right on into the plot. The plot of this movie is that there is this girl, there's this trio of teenage girls named Becca, Izzy, and Cassie. And Becca, Izzy, and Cassie are kind of going through a friendship thing. Cassie recently got a boyfriend, and now she's spending more time with him and not her friends. It's getting close to Becca's birthday, who is the kind of the main lead of this trio of girls. And it's her birthday. They're all into the metaphysical or witchcraft stuff, whatever you want to call it. And it's tradition that on everyone's birthday or one of their birthday that they would go into the woods and light a candle and kind of say some kind of thing. I don't know. They didn't really specify. They go to the store, which is actually now a metaphysical store, and it's also the old cabin of the Sanderson sisters. It's no longer a museum like it was in the first movie. It's now a metaphysical shop in Salem. And they decided to get some candles, and the owner, who we don't know until later, is actually a super fan of the sisters, gives the girls a special candle. And the special candle ends up being a black flame candle, of course. So when they light it, the sisters come back, and that is when shenanigans ensue to stop the infamous trio of witches from taking over their city or town of Salem. I'm okay with the plot. The plot is fine. But they have this whole side thing in the plot with the three girls and their whole drama about, Cassie hanging out with this guy, and the other two are kind of feeling like they aren't friends with her anymore. That whole thing felt off to me because there's no reason for them to have this drama, so to speak, going on. Like, there's no reason for them to, and I thought originally that these three girls were kind of like the new Sanderson sisters, passing on the mantle, so to speak, and that is kind of what happened. But I don't see the reason why, if you're gonna make this kind of comparison between, a good trio and a bad trio, why have one of the trio out for most of the movie? That part just made no sense. I don't know why we didn't have Cassie, the third girl, along with the other two for the whole movie, because she was kind of missing for the entire movie. There's also a couple other storylines too. Like, in the beginning, we see the Sanderson sisters as children, and the Reverend kicks them out of Salem because Winifred doesn't want to marry this guy, and basically mocking the early 1600s and how they kind of conducted things back then. And so the Reverend is the object of the hatred of the Sanderson sisters. And so the Reverend also looks like Cassie's dad, the girl that's out for most of the movie. And when they come back, they see a flyer for her dad as mayor because he's in re-election for being mayor. And they see one of his flyers on the ground, and they're like, oh, the Reverend's bloodline still exists. Let's go do some terrible things and end the bloodline, so to speak. And so that also kind of ties in with Cassie being gone for the whole movie, because I would have liked them to keep her in there and show that, like, I might have the Reverend's blood, but one of my best friends is literally a witch, like you guys. If I had any issue with this, wouldn't I not be friends with her? Would I not be helping her with these spells? Kind of breaking the mold. I would have liked that, but we didn't get that, so There's also this whole side plot going on with Billy Butcherson, because when the witches came back, he came back, like the first movie. And he has this kind of plot line that I thought was really cute, actually, of, you know, waking up and the shopkeeper gets put under the Sandersons' control if he doesn't assemble all these ingredients for this spell that they're doing, which ties into yet another kind of plot point in this movie. There were several plot points, several little story things going on. And when he gets all the pieces together, he tells Billy that he's not actually looking to make a spell to kill the sisters, but to help the sisters, and he needs Billy's head. But through the whole thing, and before they get to the place where the Sanderson sisters are supposed to do this big spell, they kind of go through this, like, buddy romp through town. There's a festival going on. Billy gets to play some games. The mayor's kind of, like, showing him around Salem as it is today. And that whole thing was really cute, and I thought that was a kind of a cute thing. It wasn't necessary, but it was kind of cute. I'm not gonna knock it for that. Then the other little plot point is in the flashback when the sisters are little kids, which the actresses did such a good job portraying the sisters as little kids. Amazing, stellar job. I'll go more into that later. But when they're banished from Salem, they get the spell book from this mother witch who lives in the forest. And one of the things that Winifred is looking at as a teenager, a child, because it was, you know, her 16th birthday. She had turned 16, which ties into the later theme of the movie. And she's looking at this one spell that will give any witch ultimate power. But there's a hitch to it, and the mother witch even says that book does not like this spell because it just brings nothing but misery, tells them never to do that spell. Never to do that spell. And so when the sisters are brought back, Winifred thinks that the only way to, you know, be able to stay alive forever is not to suck the souls out of the children of Salem, but to do this powerful Magicae Maxima spell. I had to look at my notes. It's called the Magicae Maxima spell. And when she does this, the consequence of the spell being that whoever casts it the 7th time, because there's 7 times you can cast this, and each time you and your coven will grow in power until you get to the 8th one. And when you get to the 8th one, then you have to give up something that you love the most. Whatever you value the most becomes your price to pay for the ultimate power. And when she does this, her sisters go away. And so it kind of ties this whole movie into this theme of sisterhood and, you know, being there for your friends or your sisters or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. And again, with Cassie's whole thing with being gone for most of the movie, I really did not understand why they were going with that theme if she wasn't going to be in the movie the whole time. Again, it just felt off to me. But yeah, that's the plot of the movie. Now let's talk about the characters. First, let's talk about our leads. First off, Becca, Izzy, and Cassie. They all did an alright job. The actresses, I believe, were really eclipsed by the appearance of the Sanderson sisters, which is Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker. And with them, you know, being returning cast and being kind of the focus of the whole movie, you know, the reason why people are going to watch this is for the sisters. So I believe these kids were kind of overshadowed a bit by their performance, with them being more experienced actors and whatnot. But the kids did an alright job. I don't really have anything bad to say about any of them. I kind of wish, again, that Cassie would have had a little bit more screen time and time to interact with the two. Because I felt like at the end of the movie, the two girls that had been kind of fighting the sisters the whole time had more of a stronger bond than when Cassie came in. It felt like they were just kind of rescuing some girl that they knew or were once friends with. That kind of thing. That's how that whole resolution felt to me. I don't know about anyone else, but that's how it felt to me. The sisters, of course, the Sanderson sisters, Oh my gosh. It felt like they were just right back into it. You could tell that they were so happy to bring these characters back. And I'm glad for that. I watch Hocus Pocus every single year. I am a die-hard fan. I have two of the Funko Pops. I have Sarah Sanderson actually behind me. I got Billy Butcherson over there. Like, I'm a huge Hocus Pocus fan. I watch this movie every year. Sometimes I watch it just when I want to. It's one of my comfort movies. So, I had a lot of expectations for this movie. And the sisters, of course, phenomenal job. Just so good. And I believe that the standout wasn't actually Bette Midler, where it felt like Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker kind of stood out in the first movie. Kathy Najimy as Mary Sanderson, she had a lot of the good, best jokes in the movie. She just brought so much more to that character, and I have nothing bad to say about the actresses. Not at all. This was good. Good casting. One of my favorite actors of all time, Doug Jones, reprised his role as Billy Butcherson in this movie, and it was just as good as before, if not better, because at the end of the movie, of course, Billy was able to get the stitches off of his face so he could, say some mean things to Winifred, as he deserves. And his whole little plot line of, how everyone thinks that Billy Butcherson was with Winifred and then he cheated with Sarah. He's like, no, history got that wrong. That is my unfinished business now. I was never with Winifred. She was just obsessed with me, dog. She was just down bad. She was just down bad and couldn't take the heat that I did not want any of what she was serving me. She couldn't handle it. She was obsessed. She was a yondeer before they were yondeers. She and I were not a thing. We were not Snapchatting each other. We were not DMing. None of that. I want the world to know I was never with Winifred. And so he tells the guy that's doing the spell, because he thinks the whole time that the guy from the shop is actually doing a spell to kill the sisters. Instead, he's actually just gathering ingredients. Sorry about my dog barking. Anyway, Billy Butcherson's whole thing was just so good, and I loved it so much. Also, while I'm at it, the guy that plays Billy Butcherson, whose name is Doug Jones, and is an iconic monster actor. If there is ever a live-action Nightmare Before Christmas, I need Doug Jones to play the role of Jack Skellington. This man would body this character. This man would absolutely body frickin' Jack Skellington. Try to prove me wrong. The man is lanky. The man is a well-known creature actor. He can move his bodies in ways that I just know that he would be able to do Jack Skellington justice. Okay, back to the video. I'm sorry. Prove me wrong, though. Casting of this movie was great. I believe writing was a little bit lacking, and that's one thing about anything on TV that is bad or you could think is just, good garbage, is, there is a point where you know that if anything has bad writing, you could have some of the most glorified, phenomenal, talented actors in the world all in the same movie. But if your writing is bad, the whole thing is gonna be shit. Plain and simple. But this movie did kind of suffer a little bit from writing could have been better. It wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad. It could have been betterly? It could have been better written, is all I'm gonna say. Now we're gonna talk about the music. The music in this movie did not make sense. Did not make sense. As soon as the sisters come back, they start singing. And the whole moment of this movie is the wind is blowing, there's thunder in the distance, the spell to bring them back is happening. And, the girls are scared. They're trying to put out the candle. There's this tense moment of, get it out, what's happening? I don't know what's happening, let's go hide behind this rock. And then the sisters come back, and they immediately start singing. it completely broke that whole tense moment of like, this is how scary the sisters are. Because yes, they're funny, yes, they're goofy, yes, they're iconic, but part of the reason why the Sanderson sisters are iconic is because they scared me as a child. I loved them, but they scared me at the same time. Like going to a really well done haunt or a haunted house walkthrough. Scare actors are great. They're some of the best people I fucking know. I know quite a few scare actors. Scare actors are some of the best people in the world. They can do their job quite well. And it's fun and it's spooky. But it's terrifying at the same time. But the sisters didn't feel as menacing and terrifying to me in this movie. And I think it started right when they appeared because they started singing. But that's not even like the most egregious offender in this movie. There's this moment where they're walking through town and there's this whole Sanderson sisters costume contest going on. And that moment was funny, but the girls start singing, and I don't have an issue with them singing because I get they were trying to like replicate that moment from the movie where they're singing on stage and they're hypnotizing the whole town with I've Got a Spell on You, you know, one of the most iconic parts in the whole movie. But they start singing Blondie's One Way or Another. And like, I know the first song didn't make sense for them to sing, just like it wasn't like normal for them to sing I Put a Spell on You in the first movie. Like, I understand, like, oh, they're from the 1600s, how did they know the songs? But the witches back aligned with the part that they're witches, and I Put a Spell on You aligned with the fact that they're witches. It was kind of funny for them to be singing, like, that kind of song because that is what they are. They're witches. They're putting a spell on you. The witch is back. They're back. Those songs made sense for them to sing, but One Way or Another did not make sense. Not at all. I feel like we could have went without that whole part, but I did like the whole moment where they're, you know, at the costume contest and they freaking lose even though they're the originals. And then Winifred can't accept the fact that she freaking lost. Love that part to bits. But then they had to sing. And it had to be that song. And I'm not saying I don't like Blondie. I grew up on classic rock. I love Blondie. I love One Way or Another. But it didn't make sense for the narrative. And I think that's why a lot of people in particular have issue with this part of the movie, of this scene, is specifically because they can forgive the other song because it made sense. This song did not make sense. You see, you see what I'm seeing, right? Right? Okay. Moving on. Now let's talk about my final thoughts on this movie. My final thoughts are, this movie was alright. I know it sounds like I'm dunking on it way too much, and I'm not trying to. I'm just telling you what I felt like could have changed or could have been better. I mean, that's part of being a movie reviewer. I'm looking at it from a reviewer's standpoint as well as my own nostalgia, because I didn't want my nostalgia to control me through this movie and just accept it for what it is simply because it's Hocus Pocus. And I try to value that, especially when I'm talking about movies that, you know, are sequels to something that I really love. I'm trying not to let me wear these nostalgia glasses, so to speak, because I understand that that's a lot of people's childhood, is watching this movie every Halloween, and I'm not, you know, I'm not saying I wasn't. I was one of those kids. I watch it even in the summertime. So I did not let my nostalgia control me when I reviewed this movie. I'm trying not to look through those nostalgia glasses where I'm just like, it's the Sanderson sisters. It has to be an amazing movie simply because they're in it. No. So this movie was alright. There's this feeling that you get from the first movie. And part of the reason why it's so nostalgic is for me because it perfectly encapsulates that Halloween feeling with this orange glow through the entire movie. There's the leaves blowing everywhere. There's these wonderful shots with like Allison walking through this like pathway, but there's like grass and stuff and they're just covered in leaves, and the moment in the cemetery with the boys, you know, taking Max's shoes, and just the whole feel of that movie. It feels like Halloween. It feels like Halloween in its best version to me. That is just the best feeling from that movie. With this movie, you don't get that feeling. If anything, everything's washed in this dull brown glow and not a nice, you know, soft orange like the first movie. And lighting is something that really does help a movie feel like how it's supposed to feel. So I don't know why I think they even got the same director from the first movie. I think they even got the same director, so I don't know why he didn't go with the orange glow, because it helped make the movie feel like a Halloween movie. It didn't feel like Halloween. And now my other point about this movie is the sisters are goofy in the first movie. Yes, and this is something I kind of touched on before, but the sisters are so much goofier in this movie. And while some jokes were great, it just felt like they weren't as menacing as before. And that was one of the things I really liked, is like how menacing but yet lovable these witches were. And we didn't get that in this movie. Kind of disappointing, but you know, I'm not saying this movie was bad. I'm not saying this movie was terrible. I liked the whole kind of lore that they brought into it. I really liked seeing the Sanderson sisters, like, kind of flashback moment in the beginning of the movie. I liked learning about the mother witch and, like, realizing, like, that's why they're always, like, revering their mother in the first one. It's like, mother. Like, I was wondering, why are they so hung up on their mom? If that's something normal to say, is like, why are you so hung up on your mom, bro? But you know what I mean? Like, who is their mother? Like, who is the mother? Who is, you know, why is she so revered by these menacing evil witches? But she seemed like a good person, kind of, sort of. I don't know. I liked that whole concept with, like, you know, a witch gets her powers at 16, and then, you know, the girl that's already kind of into this stuff realizes that she's a true witch because she starts getting her powers fighting the sisters. And I really liked that whole kind of, like, contrast between the Sanderson sisters and this new trio of girls, which includes the daughter of, you know, the mayor, who is, you know, a bloodline descendant of the reverend that kicked the sisters out of town. You know, her blood is standing in this new trio of sisters, of sisterhood, and, you know, that kind of thing. And I wish that would have been more of a dynamic that they had, is like the sisters realize that she's also part of the bloodline. She's like, yeah, but, like, witches aren't bad when they're using the magic for good. I would have liked something like that. Even just something like that is like, yeah, I might be related to that dude that did you guys wrong. But don't shit on me for it, because I'm not like that. I'm not like other girls. But kind of that dynamic, if you understand what I'm saying. I know sometimes when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, I feel like I'm rambling. So if you understand what I'm saying, thank you. I hope I don't sound like a lunatic. And like I said, I loved all the characters. I loved them coming back. I feel like the younger girls, the teenagers, were kind of eclipsed by the, you know, the amount of original cast that had come back. We didn't see Danny or Max or, oh my god, I forgot her name, Allison. We didn't see any of them in this movie, and that was kind of a letdown. I would have liked them to go to Max for help, maybe, or maybe even, you know, Max be moved away along with Allison. They're together in another town, but little Danny stayed behind and now has grown up after 30 years, and she's still living in Salem, maybe even running, like, a psychic shop or something. And the girls go to her for help, and she's like, oh yeah, Sanderson sisters, huh? Fucked with them before. Yeah, you guys need to make sure that they don't survive or suck the life out of anybody until sunrise, and then they'll be gone. And, like, that's all she gives them. Just gives them the fact that, you know, when the black flame candle is lit, you have to keep the sisters from sucking the soul out of a child until sunrise. I mean, that's all she would have needed to do for a cameo. I would have liked if one of the 3 kids from the original would have, you know, came back to, like, kind of guide the new trio a little bit, because they figured things out by themselves the first time. It would have been nice to see that kind of dynamic instead of just these girls against the sisters from the first movie, but also seeing the other side of the first movie, which was, you know, the kids and their struggle with the sisters. So, yeah. This movie was alright. Not anything bad, not anything terribly good. I believe that this movie was a solid 7. A solid 7. I don't think it was, you know, it doesn't top the original, but it doesn't do an injustice. It just feels like a continuation. It felt like a natural continuation of the story. And I know that's something that might be a little bit of a hot take, but it's mine. You don't have to agree with me. We can discuss this in the comments. I say this every single time in my description. It's like, if you don't agree with me, I'm sorry, but we all can have an opinion. If you want to debate me and not get cursey wordy and using insults with me and want to have an actual discussion about this, we can have an actual discussion in the comments. You might possibly change my mind or bring up something that I didn't think about when watching this. Just saying. So, I think I'm going to give this movie a 7. It was alright. Will I rewatch this every year like I do the original? Probably not. But it was alright. It was alright to me. That's it. It was alright. That's what I gotta say about the second Hocus Pocus movie. So, let me know what you think about the second Hocus Pocus movie down in the comments below. I don't just talk about this kind of stuff, I also talk about books, movies, TV shows, anime, anything that I find interesting, it goes on the channel. That's why the name's The Random Show. It's random for a reason. So if you look around the channel, I'm sure you'll find something you like. That's what I got. That's what I got. I love you all so, so much, and I hope you have the best day. Love ya. Bye.